When working with Angular, you organize things differently than with regular JavaScript. One of the popular ways of organizing applications is called an MVC architecture, and that stands for Model, View, and Controller. In order to get the most out of AngularJS, you need to understand how this works. So let's go ahead and review these concepts and work on an example that uses these three together. Now, when you hear the word model in an MVC architecture, it's probably easier to think of it as data. In traditional web applications, we can use data to create dynamic documents. You get the data from either a static JSON file or a database like SQL. So the other part of an application is called a view. In order to show the data you have stored in a model, you can create an Angular view. This is nothing more than a template. You create views in your HTML code by using double curly braces. This is a lot like using JavaScript templating libraries like Mustache.js. So what's missing, of course, is controllers. Controllers give you the ability to add functionality to your data. Now, this is the JavaScript that links your views to your models. So let's go ahead and use these in an example. Here's the page that I created in the previous movie. I'm going to go ahead and delete these two lines. Now, first, we're going to go ahead and create the model. The model is usually placed in some variable, so I'm going to create a script tag. And inside that script tag, I'm going to create a variable called scope, and then add a variable called author to that scope. And in here, I'll go ahead and create an object. This is a JavaScript object. And I'll create some JSON. So I'll create this object called name and assign it my name. And then I'll create a title field here. And finally, a company name. Now that we have a model, we need to create a view to place this information into. So I'm going to place this right underneath this body tag. I'll create a div, and inside this div, we're going to create just some regular HTML. So we'll do an h1 tag here, and we'll call the fields in our model. So since our model is placed in this variable called scope, we're just going to create double curly braces here. And what we want from our variable is called author and then .name. That's our model. Next, we'll go ahead and create a paragraph. And in that paragraph, I'm going to create another template here. And I'm going to place in here the author title. And then I'm going to use a plus sign. So this is actually like regular JavaScript. And then we're going to add down here author company. So we're actually calling both of these variables in a single expression, which is what you call these things with the double curly braces. And what I want to do here is just add a comma in between. So it's going to have the title and then the company name. All right, so now that we have both the model and the view, we need to create the controller. So the controller is what is going to tie these two things together. So what we'll do is we'll take this variable that we created called scope, and we'll wrap it around with a function call. We'll call this function myController, and this controller is going to get this variable that we defined down here called scope. So now we're connecting the JavaScript object we created earlier into this function called myController. So all we have to do to tie these two things together is add another attribute into this div. We'll call this attribute ng-controller, and we'll assign it the controller that we created, the function, in other words, that we created called myController. All right, so now I'm going to save this, and I'm going to preview this in a browser. So I'm going to refresh this in a browser, and you can see that all my information comes through. Now, although our example here is not particularly impressive, we've got the basics of Angular's MVC architecture all in a single document. In this example, we placed everything inside a global variable called scope, right here. That's probably not a good practice since it creates a variable that could conflict with other variables. Never fear though, we'll explore how to fix that using modules in the next movie.